The champagne glass clinked against silverware as my sister Kathy stood up during my wedding reception. I thought she was going to give a sweet toast about love and family. Instead, she beamed like she was the one wearing white. "Today is truly a joyous day for me," she began, her voice echoing across the decorated ballroom. "I'm so happy that my baby sister found love. But in this celebration of love, I just can't keep my happy news to myself anymore." My stomach dropped. I knew that look in her eyes. "I'm pregnant," she announced, placing her hand on her flat stomach. "We're so excited. Honestly, it just feels like everything is happening for me this year." The room erupted in gasps and congratulations. People turned away from me, the bride, to focus on Kathy and her glowing announcement. My wedding reception suddenly became her pregnancy reveal party. I sat frozen in my chair, still holding my fork from the wedding cake I'd been eating. My husband Mark squeezed my hand under the table, but I could barely feel it. All I could see was Kathy's triumphant smile as she soaked up the attention that should have been mine. She caught my eye across the room and threw me a little wink before sitting down. I managed to smile and nod through the rest of the reception. People kept coming up to congratulate me on my marriage, then immediately asking about Kathy's pregnancy. "How exciting for your family," they kept saying. "Two big celebrations." But it wasn't two celebrations. It was one celebration that got hijacked. When the last guest finally left, I made it to the bridal suite before I completely fell apart. Still in my wedding dress, I collapsed onto the bed and sobbed. All the emotions I'd been holding back for hours came pouring out. Mark sat beside me, still in his tuxedo, trying to comfort me. "Honey, I'm so sorry. That was completely inappropriate. She did it on purpose," I cried into his shoulder. She knew exactly what she was doing. The wedding dress that had made me feel like a princess now felt heavy and suffocating. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, and Kathy had turned it into another one of her spotlight moments. A soft knock interrupted my tears. I wiped my face, thinking it might be Mark's mom coming to check on us. Instead, it was my mother, and she wasn't here to comfort me. "Oh honey," Mom said, practically glowing with excitement. "Isn't this wonderful? Kathy's going to have a baby. I'm going to be a grandmother." I stared at her in disbelief. My mascara was smudged, my wedding dress was wrinkled from crying, and she wanted to talk about Kathy's pregnancy. "Mom, she announced it at my wedding," I said, my voice still shaky. During my reception, she waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, you know Kathy. She gets excited and can't contain herself. Besides, it's such happy news. You should be thrilled for your sister." Mark cleared his throat. "Mrs. Patterson, maybe we could talk about this tomorrow? It's been a long day." But Mom was already lost in grandmother fantasies. She went on and on about baby names, nursery colors, and how she couldn't wait to spoil her first grandchild. I just sat there, still in my wedding dress, listening to my mother gush about my sister's pregnancy announcement that had completely overshadowed my wedding day. When she finally left, I looked at Mark with tears in my eyes. "Am I crazy for being upset about this?" He pulled me close. "No, Maya. You're not crazy at all." The next morning, I decided to confront Kathy directly. I found her at her favorite coffee shop, already posting pregnancy announcement photos on social media. She looked up from her phone with that same satisfied smile. "Maya, how are you feeling after yesterday? You looked a little tired at the reception." "Kathy, why did you announce your pregnancy at my wedding?" I asked, sitting down across from her. She laughed like I'd said something ridiculous. "Oh, come on. You're being so dramatic. It was just good timing. Everyone was already together, and I was so excited I couldn't wait." "It was my wedding day," I said firmly. "And it was beautiful," she replied, not missing a beat. "But life doesn't stop for one day, Maya. Some people are just meant to shine, and yesterday felt like my moment too." I felt my face flush with anger, but Kathy just sipped her latte like we were discussing the weather. Her husband, Derek, had been quiet the whole time, staring into his coffee cup. When I looked at him, hoping for some support or at least acknowledgement of how inappropriate this was, he couldn't even meet my eyes. There was something strange about his reaction, but I was too angry to think about it clearly. Driving home, I started thinking about all the times Kathy had done this before. It wasn't just the wedding. There was my high school graduation, where she announced she was dropping out of college to find herself. My engagement party, where she showed up with a mysterious new boyfriend and spent the whole night talking about their whirlwind romance. Every major milestone in my life, Kathy found a way to make it about her. My 21st birthday became about her new job. My college graduation became about her moving to a new city. Even smaller moments, when I got my driver's license, she chose that same day to pierce her ears without permission, causing a huge family drama. I'd always brushed it off as Kathy being Kathy. She was the dramatic one, the attention seeker. I was the quiet, responsible sister who didn't make waves. But sitting in my car, still processing what had happened at my wedding, I realized I was done being the understanding one. I was done making excuses for her behavior. I was done playing nice. Something about Derek's expression kept bothering me too. He looked guilty, almost nervous. For someone who should have been celebrating becoming a father, he seemed awfully uncomfortable. I decided to pay more attention to the details. That night, I started looking through Kathy's recent social media posts more carefully. She'd been posting a lot lately: coffee shop selfies, workout photos, pictures of her and Derek at restaurants. But as I scrolled back through the past few months, something felt off about the timeline. Kathy had said she was about 8 weeks pregnant, which would mean she conceived sometime in early March. But I remembered Derek being away for work during most of March. His company had sent him to a conference in Chicago, then he'd had to stay an extra week for training. I grabbed my calendar and started checking dates. Derek had been gone from March 5th through March 18th. If Kathy was 8 weeks pregnant now, she would have conceived right in the middle of those 2 weeks. I went back to her Instagram posts from that time period. There were several selfies from what looked like a hotel room. The captions were vague, treating myself and solo weekend vibes, but the backgrounds definitely weren't from their apartment. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but you should check who your sister's baby daddy really is." Attached was a grainy but unmistakably clear photo of Kathy kissing someone who definitely wasn't Derek. I stared at the photo for a long time. The image quality wasn't great, but it was clearly Kathy. She was wearing the same outfit from one of her hotel selfies, and the timestamp showed it was taken during the week Derek was in Chicago. My phone buzzed again with more messages from the same unknown number. This time it was screenshots of flirty text messages between Kathy and an unnamed contact, with suggestive emojis and mentions of "our weekend" and "can't wait to see you again." The timeline was becoming impossible to ignore. Derek couldn't be the father of Kathy's baby. I sat there staring at the evidence, my hands shaking. Part of me wanted to delete everything and pretend I'd never seen it. But Derek deserved to know the truth. I picked up my phone and cautiously sent him a message. "Can I ask you something personal?" He responded quickly, "Of course." "What's going on?" I started carefully. "Has Kathy seemed off to you lately?" "Actually, yes," he replied. "She's been acting really strange. Kind of distant, and she gets defensive when I ask simple questions about doctor appointments." My heart started racing as I typed, "Derek, when exactly were you in Chicago again?" "March 5th through 18th. "Why?" The pieces were falling into place, but I needed more evidence before I could show him what I'd found. Before I could figure out how to respond to Derek without showing my hand too early, I decided I needed more information. I reached out to Rachel, Kathy's former best friend. They'd had a sudden falling out a few months ago that had surprised everyone in our family. I found Rachel at the gym where she worked as a personal trainer. When I asked about what happened between her and Kathy, her expression immediately hardened. "I didn't want to be part of her mess," Rachel said firmly. "I can't be friends with a lying, backstabbing witch." "What do you mean?" Rachel looked around the gym, then motioned for me to follow her to a quieter corner. "Kathy has a problem with boundaries, Maya. She can't stand when other people have something she doesn't. Like my boyfriend." She explained that Kathy had been flirting with her boyfriend Tyler for months, making excuses to text him and showing up places where she knew he'd be. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, but the signs were all there. Before she walked away, Rachel turned back to me with a warning. Just make sure you hide your man from her. You never know who she'll go after next. She pulled out her phone, sent me something, and added, "Don't say I gave you this." The screenshot Rachel sent was a hotel bill, not in Kathy's name, but tied to her work credit card. It showed a 3-night stay during the exact week Derek was in Chicago. But the most shocking detail was at the bottom of the receipt. The guest listed wasn't Kathy. It was Tyler, Rachel's boyfriend. I stared at the document, my mind racing. Kathy had used her work card to pay for Tyler's hotel room during the same week she'd conceived her baby. The evidence was becoming overwhelming. I immediately started cross-referencing this with Kathy's social media posts from that time period. The hotel selfies, the expensive restaurant photos, the mysterious solo weekend captions, it all made sense now. She hadn't been alone at all. My phone was buzzing with more messages from Derek, asking follow-up questions about my earlier conversation. But I needed to gather more evidence before I showed him what I'd found. This hotel bill was just one piece of the puzzle, but it was a crucial one. The guest's name on that receipt told me exactly who the real father of Kathy's baby was. I immediately started investigating Tyler's social media from that same time period. He'd claimed to be on a solo cabin retreat during the exact weekend of the hotel stay, but there were no photos from any cabin. Comparing the dates, everything lined up perfectly. While Derek was in Chicago and Tyler was supposedly on his guy's trip, they were actually together at that hotel. Then I found something that made my stomach turn. On one of Kathy's bikini posts from that weekend, Tyler had left a comment, "Your trouble." The emoji and flirty tone made it clear this wasn't just a friendly comment. This was a man who was intimately involved with my sister. I screenshot everything and then sent Rachel another message. Did Tyler ever admit to being with your ex-best friend? I needed to know how much Rachel knew about what had really happened during that guy's trip. If Tyler had been lying to Rachel the same way Kathy had been lying to Derek, then both of them were victims of the same deception. But I had a feeling Rachel suspected more than she'd let on. Rachel called me within minutes of receiving my message. Her voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "He swore they were just talking," she said. But now I think I was a fool to believe him. "Rachel, did Tyler ever go off the grid for a few days during his supposed guy's trip?" She paused, and I could hear her thinking. "Actually, yes. He told me he wanted to disconnect from social media during the retreat. I thought it was weird because Tyler posts everything. That's when I decided to show her everything. I sent her the photos I'd received anonymously, the hotel receipt with Tyler's name, and highlighted all the matching dates and timestamps. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched for what felt like forever. Finally, Rachel spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I knew it." "You knew?" "Deep down, I knew something was wrong. Tyler had been different after that trip. Distant. And Kathy suddenly stopped wanting to hang out with me. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, but seeing this..." She trailed off. "Rachel, I think Kathy is pregnant with Tyler's baby." Another long silence. "Then, that explains why she's been avoiding me. She knew I'd figure it out eventually." I decided to confront Kathy directly at our family's monthly brunch. I sat down next to her at the crowded table, waiting for the right moment when everyone was distracted by conversation. Leaning close to her ear, I whispered, "I know it's not Derek's baby." Her face drained of all color. For a split second, I saw pure panic in her eyes before she quickly recovered and let out a loud, nervous laugh. "You're insane, Maya," she said, loud enough for others to hear. "Pregnancy hormones must be making me hear things." She played it off like I'd made a joke, but I could see her hands trembling as she reached for her water glass. The satisfaction of watching her squirm was immediate and addictive. The rest of the family continued their conversations, oblivious to what had just happened. Kathy excused herself to the bathroom shortly after, and I noticed she took her phone with her. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from her, "Don't ever threaten my family again." I screenshot the message. Her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She was scared because she knew I was right. Within hours of our brunch confrontation, Kathy had already started her damage control campaign. She called our mom first, then several other family members, spinning a story about how I was spiraling and trying to destroy her marriage out of jealousy. When Mom called me that evening, she was clearly upset. "Maya, Kathy says you're making horrible accusations about her pregnancy. She's worried about you. She thinks you're having some kind of breakdown because you're still upset about the wedding." "Mom, I'm not having a breakdown. I'm trying to protect Derek from being lied to. She's pregnant and vulnerable right now. Can't you just put aside whatever jealousy you're feeling and be happy for your sister?" It was devastating to hear my own mother choose Kathy's lies over my concerns, but I wasn't surprised. Kathy had always been the favored daughter. After Mom hung up on me, Derek called. His voice was strained, confused. "Maya, Kathy's been acting really weird since your family brunch. She keeps asking me strange questions about whether I trust you, and she seems paranoid about something. And, honestly, I've been thinking about what you asked me earlier about the timeline. Something doesn't feel right." I could hear the growing suspicion in his voice. Kathy's defensive behavior was making him ask the questions I needed him to ask. The next day, Derek and I met privately. I showed him all the evidence I'd gathered, the photos, the hotel receipts with Tyler's name, the timeline proving he was out of town during conception, and the flirty text messages. His face went through a range of emotions as he processed everything. When I finished explaining, he was quiet for a long time, his hands shaking as he held the hotel receipt. "I want a paternity test," he said finally, his voice hollow. "Kathy will never agree to that while she's pregnant. She doesn't have to know. I can get one done after the baby's born." We researched the options and found a lab that could do a discrete paternity test. Derek would be able to get the results without Kathy's knowledge once the baby was born. But we also found a way to get preliminary results using samples we could obtain discreetly. When those results came back, they confirmed what we already knew: 0 chance the baby was Derek's. Derek stared at the results for a long time, tears streaming down his face. "My whole life is a lie," he whispered. "We need to confront her," he said finally. "Not yet," I replied, my mind already working on a better plan. "I have an idea that will make sure she can never lie her way out of this." Kathy's baby shower was scheduled for the following month. She'd been planning it for weeks, posting excited updates about decorations, games, and guest lists. It was going to be a big celebration with all our family and friends. I decided that would be the perfect venue for the truth to come out. Just like she'd stolen my wedding spotlight, I'd use her baby shower to expose her lies. I started making my own preparations. I contacted the venue and made sure Rachel would be invited. I wanted witnesses when Kathy's lies were finally exposed. Kathy posted constantly about the upcoming shower, best shower incoming, feeling so loved by everyone who's celebrating our little miracle with us. I screenshot every post, building a collection of her lies and deceptions. Each post felt like another nail in her coffin. Derek was nervous about my plan, but he agreed it was better than a private confrontation where Kathy could try to manipulate the situation. "She humiliated you at your wedding," he said. "It's only fair that the truth comes out in front of everyone who witnessed that." The countdown to her baby shower had begun, and I was ready to give her the same kind of surprise she'd given me. In the weeks leading up to the shower, I started a careful whisper campaign. I shared selective pieces of information with trusted family members, just enough to plant seeds of doubt without revealing everything. I told my aunt about the strange timeline of Kathy's pregnancy. I mentioned to my cousin that Derek had been traveling during the conception period. I casually brought up Kathy's falling out with Rachel to an old family friend. I wasn't spreading lies, just highlighting inconsistencies that people could verify for themselves if they chose to. The whispers started circulating. People began asking quiet questions, comparing notes, remembering details that hadn't seemed important before. Kathy must have sensed something was happening because she became increasingly defensive and paranoid. My mom called me, clearly agitated. "What did you do?" "Kathy's getting calls from people asking weird questions about her pregnancy timeline. Can't you just put aside your jealousy and be happy for your sister?" "I haven't done anything wrong, Mom." If people are asking questions, maybe there's a reason. But the seeds were already planted. The truth was starting to surface on its own. I spent days preparing the perfect gift for Kathy's baby shower. It was a beautiful scrapbook with a pink ribbon, exactly the kind of sentimental present people would expect from a loving sister. Inside, I carefully arranged copies of everything: the hotel bill showing Tyler as the guest, screenshots of the flirty text messages, photos of Kathy and Tyler together, the timeline proving Derek was out of town during conception, and finally, the paternity test results. Each page was labeled with dates and explanations, creating an undeniable timeline of Kathy's affair and deception. Mark found me working on it the night before the shower. "You're really doing this?" he asked, looking at the assembled evidence. "She humiliated me at my wedding in front of everyone. She's been lying to Derek for months. She's about to let him raise another man's child." "Yes, I'm really doing this." He nodded slowly. "She brought this on herself." I wrapped the scrapbook in beautiful paper with that pink ribbon, making it look like any other baby gift. The gift that would destroy her was ready. The baby shower was beautiful. Kathy had outdone herself with the decorations: pink and gold everywhere, elegant floral arrangements, and a dessert table that looked like something from a magazine. Kathy glowed as she moved through the room, accepting congratulations and gifts. She looked genuinely happy, which almost made me feel bad about what was coming. The gift opening was scheduled for the end of the party. Kathy sat in a chair decorated with ribbons while everyone gathered around to watch her open presents. She opened gift after gift: baby clothes, toys, blankets, all the usual shower presents. She smiled and thanked everyone graciously. Then Derek stepped forward with my carefully wrapped scrapbook. "This is from all of us who just wanted the truth," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the room. Kathy took the gift with a bright smile, clearly expecting another sweet baby present. She tore off the wrapping paper and opened the scrapbook. Her face turned completely white as she saw the first page. The room fell silent as Kathy stared at the scrapbook. Her hands started shaking as she flipped through the pages, seeing all the evidence of her affair laid out in chronological order. "What is this?" she whispered, but her voice carried in the quiet room. Then she exploded. "This is insane," she screamed, jumping to her feet. "These are lies. Fake evidence. Maya is trying to destroy my marriage because she's jealous." She started crying hysterically, flinging the scrapbook across the room. Pages scattered everywhere: photos, receipts, test results flying through the air for everyone to see. Derek stepped forward calmly. "Kathy, save it. The paternity test doesn't lie." That's when Tyler, who had been standing quietly in the back with Rachel, stepped forward. "Actually, Kathy," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I sent Maya those photos." The room went dead silent. Kathy's face turned even whiter. "You ghosted me the second you found out you were pregnant," Tyler continued, his voice steady. "You threatened me to stay away, said you'd ruin my life if I ever contacted you again. I had to make sure my child's real father knew the truth." Kathy stared at him in horror as everyone processed what they'd just heard. My mom, who had been sitting in stunned silence, suddenly stood up and walked out of the room without saying a word. The shower was over. The aftermath was swift and devastating for Kathy. Derek left her that same day, moving out of their apartment and filing for separation. Rachel, who had been at the shower and seen all the evidence, immediately broke up with Tyler. Word spread quickly through our social circle. Kathy's reputation was in tatters. The woman who had always been the golden child, the one everyone admired, was now known as a cheater and a liar. Kathy tried calling me dozens of times over the next few days. I didn't answer a single call. She left increasingly desperate voicemails, alternating between anger and pleading. In some, she screamed about how I'd ruined her life. In others, she begged me to help her fix the situation. I deleted every message without listening to them completely. 3 days after the shower, she showed up at my front door. I could see her through the peephole. Mascara streaked down her face, hair disheveled, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I almost didn't answer, but I was curious to hear what she had to say for herself. When I opened the door, Kathy looked even worse up close. Her usually perfect appearance was completely destroyed, Makeup smeared, clothes wrinkled, eyes red and swollen from crying. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "We need to talk." I stepped aside and let her in, but I didn't invite her to sit down. "I was scared," she began, tears streaming down her face. "You always had the perfect life, the perfect marriage, the perfect everything. I just wanted something for myself. Something that was mine." I stood there silently, watching her try to justify the unjustifiable. It started as just flirting with Tyler, but then it became something more, and when I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. I thought I could make it work. I thought no one would ever find out. "And Derek?" I asked. "What about him?" "I thought he'd be happy to be a father. I thought the baby would make our marriage stronger, even if..." She trailed off. "Even if you were lying to him about the most basic fact of his child's paternity?" She broke down completely then, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted to be happy." I looked at this woman who had been my sister for 30 years, and I felt nothing but emptiness. Without saying a word, I walked to the front door and opened it. A week later, my mom came to visit. She looked older than I'd ever seen her, worn down by the scandal that had torn our family apart. "I protected the wrong daughter," she said quietly as she sat down in my living room. "I see it now. You enabled her for years, Mom. Every time Kathy did something selfish or cruel, you made excuses for her. You taught her that her behavior was acceptable." "I know," she said, tears starting to fall. "And you paid the price for it. You were always the responsible one, the one who never caused problems, so I took you for granted." She cried openly then, something I'd rarely seen her do. "Can you forgive me?" she asked. For the first time in my life, I didn't immediately rush to comfort her. I let her sit with the weight of her choices. "I don't know, Mom. You chose Kathy over me at every turn, even when the evidence was overwhelming. That hurt more than anything Kathy did." She nodded, understanding that forgiveness wouldn't come easily or quickly. "I'll do better," she promised. "I'll try to make this right." But we both knew some damage couldn't be undone. Mark and I decided we needed to get away from all the family drama. We took a long weekend trip to a quiet bed and breakfast in the mountains, leaving our phones mostly off and just focusing on each other. It was the first time in months that I felt truly peaceful. No Kathy drama, no family conflicts, no lies to uncover. Just me and my husband, enjoying each other's company. "Are you glad you exposed her?" Mark asked as we sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Yes," I said without hesitation. Derek deserved to know the truth. Tyler deserved to know he was going to be a father. And I deserved to not be the only one carrying Kathy's secrets. "Do you think you'll ever have a relationship with her again?" "I don't know. She'd have to fundamentally change who she is, and I'm not sure that's possible." On our last day at the retreat, I got a text message from an unknown number. "Can we talk? I want to fix things." I showed it to Mark. "Kathy? Probably." I deleted the message without responding. I wasn't ready to deal with her yet. 2 weeks later, Kathy persisted, and I finally agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a small cafe across town where we were unlikely to run into anyone we knew. She looked better than she had at my door, cleaned up, though still visibly stressed. She was starting to show now, her pregnancy becoming obvious. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as I sat down. "What do you want, Kathy?" "I'm getting help. I started seeing a therapist. Tyler and I are working out a co-parenting plan. I'm trying to put the pieces of my life back together." I nodded but didn't respond. "I know I messed up everything. I know I hurt Derek and Tyler and you. I know I've been selfish my whole life." "Yes, you have been." She flinched at my bluntness. "But you ruined my life," she said, a flash of her old anger returning. "You could have handled this privately. Instead, you humiliated me in front of everyone." I stood up to leave. "No, Kathy. You did this to yourself. Every choice that led to that moment was yours." I walked away, leaving her sitting alone at the cafe. Back home, I went through my wedding photos for the first time since Kathy's announcement had overshadowed my special day. I found my favorite picture of Mark and me during our first dance and had it printed and framed. Looking at it now, I could see past Kathy's drama to the real joy of that day. She had tried to steal my spotlight, but she hadn't stolen my happiness or my marriage. I placed the photo on my mantle, cropping out everything except Mark and me. Mark found me looking at it later that evening. "Beautiful picture," he said, wrapping his arms around me. "It really was a perfect day," I said, and I meant it. Kathy had spent our entire lives trying to dim my light so hers could shine brighter. But I had learned something important through all of this. My light didn't depend on her darkness. My happiness didn't require her approval or attention. I had reclaimed my story, my wedding day, and my peace of mind. She stole my spotlight, but I reclaimed my story. So that's my story. What would you have done? Craving more secrets, lies, and betrayal? This is just the beginning. Hit subscribe. You won't believe what comes next.